All right, welcome to our infill deal list call. So we do this every week at 2 p.m. on Fridays. And this week is actually pretty exciting. This is the first time. So I've actually tracked these, medium-sized subdivisions on our deal list for a while. I just have not presented one of these yet in this group that has this kind of profit potential. So I usually focus on like the smaller deals that for individual investors, but this is an exciting one. So um, it's an exciting location and an exciting profit potential. So hopefully we can get somebody that's interested in this and get it under contract. We actually just had one of our deal list clients close on a property today. That was our infill deal of the week, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago. And it's one that's off of Boise Avenue in Southeast Boise, right by the university, and we can actually split two lots off the back side of it. And because of the neighborhood, being able to split two lots, there's actually a lot of profit margin in there, and that's probably going to create about on the underwriting we think it's going to create about 350,000 in equity for them, which they'll roll into. They're going to actually keep both houses and rent them, or if we can't do two lots because it's close, we'll just do one lot and do a duplex and maybe an ADU. But the cash flow will basically be $1,300 a month minimum either way. And that's actually not including the ADU. So with an ADU, it'll be more. But anyway, that's exciting because we just had somebody close on that. We have a couple more people that are actively looking at deals, possibly one offer going in today. So I'm going to jump into the details of how you get access to our list all the time. So you can basically be the first one that gets the details of this list as soon as I enter them into the spreadsheet. And then you can also get our weekly email that we send out if you aren't on the list already. So the deal list details. So if you're an investor, not a realtor, so in order to get active on our list all the time, we require that you have a signed buyer's representative agreement with a sponsoring realtor that's been through our training. So if you are already working with a realtor, that doesn't mean you can't work with that person. You can still work with them. They just have to go through our training as well, so they have access to the list. These deals just are multi-steps, and we want to make sure that everybody that's involved in this, like when we're going through this, understands the process, because otherwise we end up having to explain everything 3 times to everybody. So the other part of this is that we have you as the investor also watch our webinar sessions 1 and 2 on infill development. These are the same courses that we give the realtors, but they're tailored towards the investors. And then we also have our deal list review Zoom call, so where we basically just explain what you're looking at on the deal list. Then we have you just sign an agreement that you'll use our services if you implement our strategy on the identified properties. And then what we also do, so part of how we make money is a couple different ways, but one of the ways that we charge a consulting fee once you close on the property. So that covers like our upfront time and energy that we put in. Essentially, we front load a lot of our efforts on the front end of the deal list, going through due diligence. In fact, we'll actually put more time in than your realtor typically. So tons of work goes into the due diligence aspect of it. So they call it charge a consulting fee at the purchase there. And then we also make money because we are fully vertically integrated. So we run the entitlements, we run the horizontal and vertical developments. And that's how we make money. So if you're a realtor, we just require that you attend either in person or watch the replays of sessions 1 and 2 on infill development. And then the same thing on part 3 is just reviewing the deal list and what you're looking at there. And then we also just have you sign an agreement stating that if you're going to use the strategies that we're suggesting with buyers, that you'll introduce us to your buyers early on in the process. Because there's so much due diligence and efforts on the front end, we really need to be in like from day one or prior to day one of even putting an offer in. So that's why we require that. We also, as a freebie to realtors, we actually offer free marketing campaigns provided by us that you can co-brand with us. And we discussed that in part 2 of the infill development presentation. So I kind of mentioned earlier the payment points for us. We charge the consulting fee. The fees right now, now we're probably going to increase these in January. So if anybody's interested in doing a deal this year, these are going to go up slightly, probably in January. But right now we do a $10,000 fee for up to 4 units. And then we do 15,000 for a subdivision of between 5 and 10 units, and then anything after 10 is $1,000 for each lot. So that's just our consulting fee. Then we charge an entitlements fee, and that's basically just an hourly rate, billed monthly in arrears for the actual hours. Then we have our development general contracting and our building general contracting. So for the horizontal and vertical, we charge a fee for that. The great thing with all that is we're not charging an exorbitant amount for any of this stuff. In fact, we're going to be a lot cheaper than some contractors and maybe a little bit more than some others, but we're not gouging you on any of this stuff, even though our system is pretty unique. I don't know of any other developer or builder that's doing this for other people across the country, much less in Boise. So getting into our actual deal and how this works. So we actually offer a guarantee on our deals as well. So just basically makes our clients feel more comfortable especially if you're not familiar with development or if you've never gone through this before. We have done multiple of these deals. So what we do is we call it our 6 figures in 36 months or less infill deal offer. And so basically this is just kind of giving you peace of mind that you're not going to lose money or on a bad deal, or that you don't know the process, that you'll make a mistake, or if you're worried that projects are going to drag on too long, or if you're worried that contractors will cut corners. Again, we're vertically integrated, so we have our hands on every aspect of this, and we make it a win-win for everybody. And then the other thing is just if you're just invested passively in somebody's deal, you don't have any control over that. This is different because you actually buy the property and then we do all the work for you. So you basically own it. You make all the key decisions. You can fire us at any point if you want to. Obviously, we'll have contracts in place, that we all have to perform according to those contracts. But if we don't perform, you can fire us. So you maintain control while we do all the work, and we back up everything with a guarantee. So the core components of this is we have expert deal underwriting. So we vet, analyze, and underwrite every infill deal on our list. So we don't just estimate numbers. We've done every step ourselves on our own projects, and we know where the costs and timelines can go wrong. Number 2 is we offer a negotiation support. So we guide you and your realtor on how to structure and present offers. So we just know how to get these deals accepted, but also structured in a way that gives us enough time for due diligence, that kind of thing. We also offer step-by-step due diligence, so you'll never be left in the dark. We walk you through due diligence step-by-step. So we actually have a 13-page due diligence checklist. We share that with you at the very beginning of due diligence. You'll actually be assigned about 10% of the items on the checklist. We do 90%. And then at the end of this phase, you get to decide whether to proceed with all the risks and numbers laid out clearly. Another part of this is sometimes, so on a lot of these deals, there's an existing house on the property, and most of the time it makes sense to retain that house, but sometimes it needs renovation. So because we're contractors, we can also renovate this house, and we use all of our systems and trades and everything to do that. We also offer entitlement management. So we basically manage the entitlement process with the city and all the other organizations that go into it. And so we've been through the pitfalls and know how to minimize delays and keep projects moving. A lot of it is just greasing the wheel. And then we also do the horizontal development. So all the lots and utilities, roads, sidewalks, all that kind of thing. And then, of course, the vertical construction. This is where we primarily make the most of our money, because it's just the highest dollar cost of everything in this. So we oversee every step of construction and manage it. We use all our subs, and our team is a well-oiled machine that's already made the expensive mistakes, so you don't have to. Part of the bonuses on this too. So we give you the ultimate guide, introduction to infill development for free. So if you guys don't have that yet, if you're listening to this, just send me a message. I'll email that over to you. We'll provide you with our due diligence checklist. So that 13-page due diligence checklist we'll share with you at the very beginning of due diligence. And then we're also going to give you an underwriting worksheet. It's a one-page sheet that's basically acts as the final no or sorry, go or no go underwriting for you to base your final investment decision on. So on our deal list, we're going to have like high level numbers, but once we actually dig into due diligence, that's where we're really going to discover, if there's any extra expenses, or sometimes you can get more density or, something like that. So the numbers can fluctuate during due diligence until we kind of uncover all the possibilities and all of the hindrances on the property. Now, a lot of people with development get nervous because like there's no way to know all of the issues or situations on the properties before you have it under contract and go through that due diligence. It's not like buying a regular house where you can do due diligence, in a matter of hours. We're talking, typically weeks of due diligence, or sometimes we can condense those weeks into a week or two, just by our strategy. We'll also provide you with our entitlement process checklist and projected timelines. So we have the same kind of checklist for the entitlements, and then we'll project out the timelines on all those checklist items. And then we also provide you with our complete construction process and inspection checklist. And we also provide you with a third-party new home inspection report on all of our new construction builds. We inspect at 4 different phases. So we go behind the walls at framing and rough-ins, then at drywall, then at interior and exterior finishes, and then the final inspection. Sometimes that final inspection, there's actually a 5th inspection, because after they do the final, sometimes there's some final last-minute fixes to do. And then we send the inspectors out there to document that once those have been fixed. So essentially, it just guarantees that you have a good quality home, even behind the walls and between the studs. Then we're going to host a monthly progress call. So this is going to start probably in January. Previously, I said that this was going to start probably this month, but I think we're going to wait until January, just until we have a couple more deals in the pipeline so we can fill up the call a little bit more. But we're going to review all current projects for all of our clients and also our own deals, and the progress made, as well as the challenges that we ran into. So this is going to be open to everybody, whether you own a deal or you're just interested in a deal. This will be an open call that's open to people that are invested or own or just curious. The second to last thing is we are going to provide you with an entitlements guarantee. So we guarantee that if we don't achieve the unit count we underwrite, we'll waive our next fee or apply it towards development costs. So for example, this deal today that we're presenting, so I have it analyzed at a high level with 13 units. So once we finish due diligence, we'll know really well if we can get those 13 units, or maybe it's 12, or more than likely we can actually get more, because I actually have a viable site plan with up to 19 units. So I think I can actually make it more profitable than it is. I just don't want to, I try to underpromise and overdeliver, especially on the front end. But we guarantee that. So at the end of due diligence, if we say, okay, it's going to be 12 units and this is what it looks like, if it only ends up getting approved for 10 units, then we're basically going to waive whatever fee we charged towards the next deal, or we'll apply it, we'll waive our next fee towards the next deal, or we'll apply it towards the horizontal development costs. So, if we have a $30,000 fee, we'll apply that towards the development costs. And then the final deal or guarantee, this is the big one, is we provide you with an underwriting guarantee. So we guarantee that if the project doesn't meet at least 100% of the cash flow or final profit projected at final underwriting, we're going to refund you until it does. And this is up to $50,000 per deal. So this mostly applies to like the single lot split. So if we say you're going to make 100,000 and you only make 75,000, we basically withhold up 50,000 on each deal until the very end. So we'll refund that 25,000 to you to make up for that difference. Now on these larger deals like the one today, we can look at this at a different basis because it's a little bit different deal where there's multiple units. We're not going to do 50,000 per house, but we can look at maybe a larger guarantee because our profits are larger as well. So, but that's going to be kind of an individual conversation we'll have with an investor that buys this deal. So your role in this whole experience is that you make the big decisions and you own the property. We just do the heavy lifting. So our target is 6 figures in 36 months or less. Now on this deal that we're going to talk about primarily today, so these medium-sized subdivisions, a lot of times you want to do it in multiple phases, especially if, for example, let's say if we're doing 13 units, but the absorption rate in 6 months is only 6 units. We don't want to build all 13 because you're going to have them sitting on the market competing with each other for 13 months. So most likely, if that's going to be the case, we'll just do it in 2 different phases. But we'll analyze that before we go vertical and come up with a decision and basis, and maybe even try to get some pre-sold. So your protection is you always have the visibility into the cost, timelines, and progress, and then your return. So you hold the full ownership of it. We only get paid when the deal performs. So our incentives are aligned with yours. So why Matson Homes? So we specialize in infill development. We do small multifamily ADUs and subdivisions. Basically the exact strategies that cities like Boise and the surrounding areas are encouraging. And we've already figured out the business every which way we can do it. So we built the systems so you don't have to. And then our team has also completed projects from single family flips to multi-unit developments, and we've held rentals. So we have the experience in every aspect of each one of these deals. So basically the end result is you're not gambling on a low margin flip or something that you've never done before. You're partnering with a team that's already mastered the process, protects your downside, and guarantees the key results that matter. All right, we're going to jump into the list. I'm going to share my screen here. Does anybody have any questions about any of that first, though, before I move on? Okay. Okay, we're going to first jump into the deal of the week. And then we'll go over some of these other 6-figure deals as well. Okay, so this deal I was actually made aware of before it hit the market, and I actually thought I had an interested partner in it, but apparently their funds are tied up in a few different projects, so they couldn't do it. So it's we were able to kind of present this in our regular deal list. So this is in Garden City. It's 301 and 307 East 35th Street. I have the overhead map here pulled up. So it's actually 3 lots. 2 of the lots are already combined. So that's this blue highlighted area. This is 301 and 305, I think, together. And then we have 307 is a separate lot, but it's all the same owner. So this is basically all one purchase right here. They're asking $975 for it. Now the location, if you guys are familiar with Garden City, so this is the Whitewater Park area, literally right here. This is all those new townhomes on Palapa Lane. They're literally being finished up and under construction on this row right here. This is the coffee shop and the taco shop right here. So this is right on the corner, literally have views of the river right here and the when you get into the upper levels, and literally a half a block from the Greenbelt. So awesome location. And by the way, these 6 parcels are also all the same owner, and they're also selling these. They're just asking a lot more money for them. So this is actually a better deal. That's why it's our infill deal of the week. This, we just have planned to tear down the house. It's not really salvageable. Well, I haven't even seen the inside of it, but it's just way better use to tear down both houses. And I think there's even like a mobile home there and some sheds, but we'll just clear all that out and basically build there's a couple ways to do this. There's actually, since it's zoned C2, which is commercial, we could actually do an apartment complex, we could do a condo tower, we could do high density townhomes, we could do, I even like originally looked at it with some townhomes plus a condo tower. So we could do any version of those. Once we get further into due diligence, we can kind of determine the best use and get all the parking in there. But I just wanted to go with, for the deal of the week structure, the minimum that we could do would be 13 units, and they're highly profitable. These on Palapa Lane, these are all about I think they're about 2,300 square feet, I want to say, and they're selling for 845 right now. I think all of them are sold or pending, maybe with the exception of one or two, but I believe they're uh, all sold or pending. And then this house, there was a single family house here, kind of staying alone. I think it'll eventually attach or be next to some townhomes, but I think that sold for over $1 million. So let's stop my share and pull up my layout here, because I think I have to do that. Okay, so this is the layout I had, like bare minimum what we could do on here. So this is the whole lot. Because it's zoned commercially, the setbacks are only 5 feet on all sides. So we have 7 townhomes. These would all be, I forget what I put in there. I think they're about 1,900 square feet, maybe a little bit bigger. Facing, I think this is Carr Street, and then this is 35th Street. We'd have 3 more. We have 6 parking spaces, which would meet all the parking requirements, and then 3 larger townhomes here facing this open area. This meets all, this is actually well over the required 10% open space requirements. These units would be about 2,500 square feet. We'd probably do some kind of cool, community stuff in this area as well. But basically, all the units would have to be, uh, you can't have any garages facing Main Street. So this is on a corner. So there's a Main Street here, Main Street here. So these all have to be rear load. So we bring in basically an alley or a private street on the back side of both of these. Now the other options here. So this is when I was kind of just really roughly penciling out, okay, can we get enough parking in there for a condo tower? And just on one level, it looks like we could get enough parking for all these units plus another 6 to 8 condos. But I think if we did like a 2-level garage or ramp, we could actually get quite a few condos in here. And because it's zoned commercially, there's no height restrictions. So there's definitely a lot of options there. And then I'm going to go back to the multifamily for rent. So the issue I've run into in multiple deals I've analyzed over the last 2 years is that apartments really don't pencil right now. Just because the exit refinance, the interest rates don't allow for you to cash flow anything. So basically, you're like on a deal like this, if you do it multifamily, or you're coming out of pocket, multiple millions of dollars, and then you're still not even breaking even on well, you basically are buying a break even point. So to me, that's just not a good investment unless you're, expecting to just have your, millions of dollars sunk in for probably longer than 5 years. Most apartment deals, they try to, build, stabilize, and refinance or resell and get your cash out and then retain it. And that would be, it just doesn't really work in this interest rate environment. Now that could change, 12 months from now. So we could get into this and kind of look at it. The nice thing about doing, you know, looking at it as a condo development is you could actually kind of switch back and forth between condos and apartments without too much of a hassle. So it's easier to go from condos to apartments, I think, but essentially condos or apartments are just individually platted. And then this is my 19 unit townhome development. So this actually, believe it or not, this meets the open space requirements, still meets the parking requirements. These roads are still short enough where you don't actually need a fire turnaround. So we're able to actually put 2 6-unit developments in here. Now these would be smaller units. So these units here would probably be about 1,500 square feet, maybe a little bit more if you go 4 stories. And then, in fact, you'd have to do 4 stories even to get 1,500, but I think you could go a little bit more square footage with 4 stories. And then these ones would still be, I think, 1,900 square feet facing car. So there's multiple options here. Again, so I wanted to underwrite this with the minimum, but I think ultimately, and I'm going to go back to the other screen here. Ultimately, I wanted to make this sure this was profitable with, sorry, let me get to the right one, with this underwriting. So there's a lot of information here, but I'm just going to go over the basics here. So this is the acquisition price, this is what they're asking, and then this would be all the cost to get it entitled. So basically, the best way to go about these, you can actually use financing later on in the development, but we usually on these development deals, you usually want to just buy the land outright in cash. Now you can leverage this sometimes at like 50 to 70% depending on the bank. You're just making payments on something that's not generating any revenue, so you just want to make sure you have the cash reserves for probably a minimum of 2 years, to make sure that it doesn't you don't get kind of tied up here making payments on something that's not generating revenue. But I will say, so if you did 50% down and you came out of pocket 550 on this development and then had another, say, 100,000 in reserves, I mean, your capital requirement is, essentially cut in half. So it's still viable and it's still plenty of profit margin in here. This is really tough to get the values of the entitled and developed lots, because there's no recent comps in this area. So basically there's development projects that have sold, but if they're unentitled or they've been so long that they just are not good comparables. So I really estimated this on the safe side. So this is basically a title lot value at 100,000. So I didn't finish underwriting this, but it does have about 130,000 in equity at 13 units, or profits, I would say. And then here it's even more profitable. So you have 700,000 in net proceeds if you sold it entitled, if it's the larger 19 unit parcel. And then we have the development costs in here, kind of the same thing. So it's still profitable, extremely profitable if you just sell the finished lots. And again, we went with, I think I did individual lots at selling at 200,000, which is a really good deal. It still leaves a good margin for a developer to go in and build it out. And then I'm going to jump over in here to the actual built out units. So we have 13 units here. So I didn't spend a ton of time like going through the 13 units versus the 19 units. The 19 units would just basically multiply this number. But these are pretty good comparables because we have those Palapa Lane townhomes. So I adjusted accordingly for square footage, but we have your entitlement cost per lot. Now, if you did 19, this would actually go down further. And then you have your development costs per lot as well. So that's the horizontal plus interest. So that's where you can start getting into better financing situation, is like doing the horizontal development, financing that out. There's construction lenders that'll fund that horizontal development. And a lot of times they'll actually have the interest reserve built in. So you don't actually have additional out-of-pocket costs on that. And then the same thing on the vertical side. They'll also fund the vertical construction with interest costs built in as well a lot of times, especially on this deal where there's a lot of margin here. So like typically your number is going to look good where they'll do that. So we have a vertical cost, what our fee is on those builds, what the expected interest rate costs or interest costs would be on each house. Now, if you notice, this is a lot of interest. So again, that's where you don't want to build 13 units if you're only selling one per month. So you typically want to build, especially if we have, let's say, 3 different, building units, maybe you build in 3 different phases, but stagger them. So once you have let's say one unit is 4. Once you have 3 of those sold, then you start vertical construction on the next few. Or maybe you have 2 units sold, but you can basically then start construction because those other 2 will get sold while you're building the other building. So you can kind of stagger them a little bit so you can minimize your interest costs there. So then we have our total costs and then the price comparables. Now these are pretty conservative. I think this would probably be closer to 800. This would probably be closer to 950. But again, we try to go in with pretty conservative estimates there. And then again, if this is 3 years from now, more than likely interest rates will be lower, which would likely mean, unless something major changes between now and then, for the negative, more than likely these costs would actually go, or these sales costs go up. More than likely you'd also have a little bit higher build costs, although I did estimate these at kind of a higher amount, just to basically factor in inflation, but also higher end finishes to justify these higher sales prices. So then this is the net profit per unit, and then your total profit here based on all that. So that's on 13 units. On 19 units, this would probably even look even better, especially if they're smaller units. Your dollar per square foot is actually higher typically on this resale cost. So your profitability, it would be smaller number, but higher profit percentage on smaller units and more quantity. Okay, any questions with that? Do I need to cover anything else? A lot of this too, so I just so you guys know, I basically like reuse the spreadsheet, and I really didn't spend the time like this takes me usually a few hours to fully fill out. So like a lot of this stuff doesn't apply. I just mainly did it for these numbers here. And this is a spreadsheet that I've used many times, so like I know the accuracy of these, but it takes me a few hours to get the rest of this all filled out. So mainly we're just looking at these 2 lines, or these 3 lines, 4 lines here. Any questions before I move on to anything else? All right. Okay, we're gonna go over to some of the single splits. So I wanted to cover really quick. So this 1509 Boise Avenue, we had a client just close on this today. So we presented this a few weeks ago. They snapped it up. Looks like it was, yeah, so about a month ago. So this was the original projection. Now we have a different spreadsheet. This actually did reduce a little bit because we figured out we had to add a lot more sewer line on the street than we originally anticipated. Then we also have to like basically reroute the canal piping. So basically it added cost once we started getting into due diligence, but it still turned out to be their remaining equity was still going to be like 550,000, and then their rental cash flow was going to be about 1340, I believe. But this is just an example of another deal that as you go along, you kind of, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down profitability wise, but that's a deal that just closed today. Okay, and then we have some other pending deals, although none of our clients bought these, which is unfortunate, but we might still get these, be able to reach out to these people and see if they want to do these type of deals. Okay, so this Sumac Street, so this is an interesting one. This is in Southeast Boise again as well. Pretty great location. This is one, so they just reduced the price about 22,000, I think, last week on this. It still might be a little bit high, but what's interesting about this, the owner is actually willing to carry the note. So with $150,000 down, they want 7%, but it's been on the market for a while. So, theoretically, you could probably go in with either a lower offer or better terms on the owner carry, either less amount down or lower interest rate. Because ultimately that higher interest rate makes the payment not necessarily work out very well. How we analyze all these single splits is we actually go in with the theory that you're gonna buy the house and then you're gonna rent it out while we go through the development process. The nice thing with that is that's gonna offset your owner carry or sorry your ownership cost of that. So basically, most of these that we underwrite, we're going to set it so that the down payment gets you to break even point on the rent. So typically it's 25% at these interest rates. Although as interest rates go down, that might lower the down payment amount required. But typically 25% down will get you to a break even point on the rents. So you can rent out the house, break even on the payment, and then basically that gives you time to go through the horizontal the entitlements and then the horizontal development. And then you can at that point then most of these deals, so once you have the lot physically split, most of these deals you can then sell the original house, because it's most of the time it's not a great rental property aside from creating wealth from the split. So you'll sell that original house most of the time, unless you, for some reason, you want to keep it otherwise. But you'll recoup a lot of your cash from that. So like on this one, we have selling the original house, you get $130,000 back, and then you're only in it at the end for $125,000 out of pocket. And then you own a new construction house now that you're going to cash flow about $450 a month. Now these are also before any, like, we don't factor in whatever if you're going to have a property manager or whatever. So these cash flow, if you manage it yourself, this might be pretty accurate, but if you hire a property manager, it might be a little bit lower. So that'll all be a situational thing that will factor in during the due diligence, what your intentions are. We also analyze this as a short-term rental, just going off of AirDNA data. Now, I will say on most of these, so AirDNA compiles all the information from all the Airbnbs. Most of the time, you're going to beat the market on new construction, specifically if your intention is to design it as an Airbnb. So, theoretically, if we design this as an Airbnb, instead of being at, this is probably factoring in like 58% occupancy, you could probably be closer to 80 or 90% occupancy on new construction. So this profitability could actually go up quite a bit. And then let me just show you the overhead on this one here. Maybe. So this one would just be a long skinny lot that we would split off. With the setbacks required, you'd have a 27-foot wide lot, which is pretty common area for or common lot size in North Boise. Not necessarily so much in Southeast Boise, but North Boise and the Bench, you see the old plats are all 25-foot wide lots. So a lot of these row homes that you see everywhere, and there's some in Southeast Boise, but those are based on those 25-foot wide lots. So this would be a 27-foot wide lot here. The parking for this house, you'd actually pull off the cul-de-sac right here. In fact, they already use it for parking back here. So then you'd have a front load garage here on this lot. We have this deal. So this is off market. The seller's, or I guess the seller's agent reached out to me directly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I don't think they know what they're doing yet. But this is like kind of the price I offered them to make it make sense for somebody. And then we're going to go into, okay, so this Eugene Street deal. Trying to remember which one this one is. Okay. So we can split a 60-foot wide property off of the north side of this lot. And this one, with that width of a lot, you could actually build small multifamily here. So theoretically, you could actually build like at least a duplex and an ADU. or you could meet the city's incentives and actually build a triplex or a fourplex a lot of times as well. So typically profitability wise it's actually more profitable. Okay, this is a lot you can split off, I remember now. So it's more profitable typically if you want to focus on like how much money you can make. It's more profitable to build single family because it sells for a higher dollar per square foot. But if you want it as a long-term rental, the more units you can get in one building, the better. So typically based on your strategy, that's kind of how we go, or how we determine will be the best, highest and best use is what your strategy is. Now, what I will say on a lot of these deals too, most of them are going to require some kind of development improvements. So like this one, for example, you notice there's no sidewalks. The city of Boise now like basically will require sidewalks on every property. They typically are going to require an 8-foot landscape buffer and then a 5-foot detached sidewalk. And then a lot of times you also have to widen the road. So like on this one, I think this is like a 20-foot wide road or 24-foot wide road, and the city is going to make you, or actually ACHD will typically make you widen that to 33 feet. But you're responsible for half of that. So if it's 28 feet to 33 feet, you basically have half of that distance to expand it. And we factor that into all of our costs. So this profitability already factors in all the things that we know the city's going to require. And then again, during due diligence, if more stuff comes up, this might end up being a deal where you say, okay, it's not as profitable, or sometimes, we overestimate and we find out that, oh, we don't have to upgrade the power, or we don't have to, do whatever that we factored in. This one here, Kitsap Way, is in the Boise foothills. This is actually on 2.5 acres. So theoretically you could add multiple units, but logistically it doesn't work. Just because basically probably an acre and a half is basically all steep slope on the foothills. But there's a nice flat parcel on the front of this that we could actually separate off pretty easily, I think, and you'd have a buildable parcel here. So this is off a hill, and I think 36 is here, near here somewhere, just down the street, I think. But this parcel right here, this is actually a flat parcel. So you could actually divide this off, probably go from corner to corner here. So it'd be kind of an different, wouldn't be a square property line, but it would be the right size and everything that you could do that. And then it already has the driveway access, and you can basically build your house right there. So that we have factored in about 155,000 profitability. We're not going to cover these that are basically under 100,000 because ultimately we have multiple deals where you can make over 100,000. There's probably ways to get creative on some of these if you have to. I did just add these two. This one I actually added this morning, but it looks like it's been on the market for a little while. I haven't run the numbers on these yet. So these might, get updated in the next couple, these will get updated in the next couple days, but yeah, so if you have full-time access to that, you can basically see in real time when I make changes to this. Just going to jump into the small multifamily here. There's not really any deals that I'm super excited about here. These again, profitability wise, they don't always pencil out very well, but a lot of times they do pencil well on the rents. So if you come over here, you actually see where actually cash flows really well on this deal, but you're also into it, 445,000 out of pocket. So you're kind of buying your cash flow there, which isn't very different from most rentals. So like, if you just go and buy a single family rental or even a duplex, you're putting 25% down and maybe breaking even, or you're putting 40% down to cash flow. So it's not very different, but most of our deals, what we like to see is that you're basically at the end, we want to see that you're out of pocket only the same amount as buying one unit, and you're cash flowing with multiple units, or you're just walking away with 6-figure profit. The other thing I'll say about these final investor profits, so this is factoring in all costs. This is all of our costs, so our entitlement costs, our development costs, our build costs. It's also factoring in interest that you pay on the build if you're using financing to build. It's also factoring in the sales cost when you go to sell it. So this isn't just like fake profits. This is actually factoring in all those like costs that a lot of people don't always look at. But we actually like look at all of those costs. I'm not going to jump into these other subdivision and land opportunities. I think the best deal that we have right now on the vacant land is that deal that we first covered. But there are multiple deals in here that have really good profit potential. These just typically take a little bit more capital. They're usually around $500,000 to $1 million to do these. So, you know, if somebody, you know, decides they want to do one of these mid-sized developments, they can reach out to us and we'll underwrite these individually based on those investor goals. So if you have access to the list and you're looking at any of these and any of these interest you, then we can jump in a little bit further. These are just a little bit more complicated to underwrite. So it takes me a few hours to get to like just a better number than what I put here even. So, and most of this time this will actually go up. I just I just don't want to put a couple hours in before we have a potential buyer. All right, I think that's pretty much all I want to cover on our deals today. Does anybody have any questions about anything?